Hello, everyone. Jared Hoffman here with the latest edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. I took a week off, I believe. Did I take a week off? I think I did. Yeah, I took a week off last week. So back here with another edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. If you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to become a level. Yo, I ain't did this in a while, so I'm a little rusty. But please subscribe to become a level 1, 2, or 3 member to get all the exclusive content from the HBCU Sports team. You can always follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky, we're on LinkedIn, we're on all of them. Just type in HBCU Sports and you will find us there. And you can always go to hbcusports.com for all the latest news in sports. For those of you who are new here, the Better Than Less Than podcast is primarily focused on, not primarily, it is completely focused on the Division II and NAIA HBCU. So all the news from the CIAA, HBCUAC, from the SIAC, and our independent HBCUs at the Division II and NAIA level, like Lincoln, Missouri, like West Virginia State, like Missoula. Names blanking on me. Those will be covered on this podcast. We do have podcasts focused on the MEAC. We have MEAC and more with Chris Stevens. That usually airs on Wednesdays, so you can always go watch that if you want to get some MEAC content. And we also have a podcast focused on the SWAC, which is where the majority of our fans are. So if you want to watch all of our SWAC content, then you could go to the SWAC page podcast, which is hosted by Kendrick Marshall and our founding editor, Kim Rashad. But here we to focus on the Division II and NAIA HBCUs, and we're not going to waste any more time because we got football season is ahead of us, and the countdown just continues. And with it being kind of a slow news week, I kind of decided, let me take some matters into my own hands and create a little bit of a discussion. So I put together, along with my HBCU Sports team, put together a Division II, HBCU Sports Division II football preseason All-American team. And here it is. Is it up yet? Boom, there we go. The Division II HBCU Sports Division II Preseason All-American team. So we're going to scroll down here so we can get to the team here. And at quarterback, I have Isaiah Knowles. So quarterback was a little bit of a tough decision. I had a couple of options there. I had Dalen Lee, of course, from Winston-Salem State, and Kelvin Durham, who is now at Johnson C. Smith, transferring from Fort Valley State, was also an option. But I went with Isaiah Knowles because I feel like Albany State's ceiling and Isaiah Knowles' ceiling is a little bit higher to me than Kelvin Durham's and Dalen Lee's. You know, Dalen Lee is ascending. I definitely believe he has the ability to be, if I were to do a postseason All-American team, I definitely believe he has the talent to be able to be on that be on the first team, the first quarterback selected to that team. He had the talent to be able to do it, but I think that the ceiling on Albany State allows for Isaiah Knowles to have a little bit more success. And this is in hindsight. This is what from the outside looking in, what I project for Isaiah Knowles compared to Dalen Lee and Kelvin Durham, because Kelvin Durham has a lot of talent around him and he has what it takes to have that incredible season. But I need to see it from start to finish. You know, he's had seasons in the past where he's produced at a high level, and Dalen Lee produced at a very high level last season. But I need consistency from Dalen Lee and Kelvin Durham before I'm able to give him that nod over Isaiah Knowles. I've seen that consistency from Isaiah Knowles, and I expect Isaiah Knowles to play at that high level, considering he is who I consider to be the number one returning quarterback at the Division II level, especially in the SIAC. It's not even a question in the SIAC with David Wright being denied eligibility. So that's why I went with Isaiah Knowles here. I think that he has the highest ceiling compared to all the returning quarterbacks that I just mentioned. And also you have Isaiah Freeman, who transferred from Lincoln to Hampton. So that just even more. And even if Isaiah Freeman was there, I still probably would have went with Isaiah Knowles, because I still think that the team that Isaiah Knowles has around him and in the SIAC, that there's more breathing room for him to have that breakout season to prove that he is the number one quarterback in Division II HBCU football compared to a Kelvin Durham or a Dalen Lee. So that might have been jumbled. I don't know if that explanation will suffice for all the WSU Ram Nation who probably would have put Dalen Lee in that spot. But yeah, I think that I just think that Isaiah Knowles, I don't think there's any other way to put it than I just think that Isaiah Knowles has a higher ceiling than I think Dalen Lee or Kelvin Durham has. Looking at the running back position, I have Tyant Weish of Albany State, and I have Trayvon Tinsley of Shaw. Is it Shaw, or I don't think he's at Shaw anymore. Hold on a second. That might be an error on my part. I don't think he's at Shaw anymore. Hold on, we're doing this live. We're gonna fact check myself live, because he was at Shaw last year, but I don't think he's at Shaw anymore. We're gonna fact check myself real quick. And no, he's at Virginia Union. So that's my bad. He is no longer at Shaw. He is at Virginia Union. So disregard that he is not at Shaw anymore. He is at Virginia Union. So Tyant Weish at Albany State, coming off an incredible freshman season at Albany State last season, where he stepped into that role as an all-purpose back in his first year at Albany State last year, had over 1,000 all-purpose yards. And I just think that there's no reason why he shouldn't be 1,000-yard rusher this year. He's without a doubt the best returning running back in the SIAC, and has the ability to be one of the best backs, not only in HBCU football, but in Division II football as a whole. So yeah, I think that Tyant Weish is in for a breakout season, and don't be surprised if you see him as a finalist for the Deacon Jones Trophy. I think he has the ability to be that good. I compare him. I don't think that I don't know if their games are particularly similar. Their style of play is particularly similar, but I compare him to a Travis Toro Jr., who is a guy who is also an all-purpose back as a freshman for Jackson State, and had a profound impact on Jackson State, even with Irv Mulligan being on the team. And now that Irv Mulligan is gone, I think that Travis Terrell Jr. has that ability to show that he is one of the best backs in FCS football. I see that same trajectory for Tyant Weish. You know, he was a big-time playmaker for Albany State last season, and that's only going to show itself even more now that he is at Albany. Now that he is in his second season and has some experience under him, because not a lot of guys have that ability to play their true freshman season. A lot of guys sit on the sideline and they learn from the sidelines, but he was thrown into the fire and he produced at a high level in his first season at Albany State and was successful. So I don't see why. I mean, of course it's going to be different because now the game plan is going to be more toward him. It's going to be more focused on him now, but I don't see why he shouldn't be able, unless he just didn't put in the work in the offseason. And I don't think that at all. I don't want to put that on anybody. So I think that Tyant Weish definitely has the opportunity to have a breakout season this year. Trayvon Tinsley, now at Virginia Union. Remember, ignore that Shaw. He's not at Shaw anymore. He is now at Virginia Union. He will step in, and I expected it to be Curtis Allen, who was on when I expect him and Curtis Allen to that chemistry that they had with Jada Byers and Curtis Allen last year. I expect that to be more of the same with Trayvon Tinsley now on the team. You know, Trayvon Tinsley didn't get to see him much last year with Shaw, but he produced some very good numbers in a CIAA that had a lot of running back talent last year. So now that he will be slotted in that spot where he'll probably, I don't know if he'll be running back 1 or running back 2, or they'll just split the carries between him and Curtis Allen this year. But yeah, I think Trayvon Tinsley, he's arguably the best returning running back in the CIAA. It's between, ironically, who's on the same team as him. It's between him and Curtis Allen. But it was pretty much just a pick 'em. I really went with Trayvon because he had more rushing yards last year, and that's not really fair because Curtis Allen was running back too. But and that doesn't take away from what I think that Curtis Allen could potentially do this season. I still think that Curtis Allen could potentially be 1,000-yard rusher this year. We could have a duo of running backs with 1,000 yards this season in Trayvon Tinsley and Curtis Allen. I think they have the ability to be that good together. So I just went with the nod of Trayvon Tinsley because he had more rushing yards last year. So we'll see what kind of chemistry they have. Luckily, they play for an offensive-minded coach like Dr. Alvin Parker, and they have Diego Rowland at offensive coordinator who has shown the ability to produce a high-powered offense. So if there's any coaching staff that I'm confident could make it work between Trayvon Tinsley and Curtis Allen, it's them, because they did it with Jada Byers and Curtis Allen. So why not, slot in Trayvon Tinsley? If he has the right mindset, it could absolutely work. Next, we have the Johnson C. Smith wide receiver duo, Brevin Caldwell and Armand Harris. Armand Harris obviously was not on the CIAA's preseason team because he's transferring from Clark Atlanta. So usually they use the preseason team to highlight the returning players, even if they are transferring from one CIAA team to the other. But here at HBCU Sports, we don't have those rules. So I got Armand Harris and Brevin Caldwell here at my wide receiver spots. Pretty self-explanatory. 2 guys who were 1,000-yard receivers last season, the only 2 at the Division II level, I believe. I don't think Jamal Jones had 1,000 yards last year, or Virgil Young had 1,000 yards last year. So I believe, they might be the only 2 Division II HBCU wide receivers that had 1,000 yards last season. We're each one of few Division II wide receivers to have 1,000 yards last season. So my expectations for Johnson C. Smith are very high. If you have not watched this podcast in the past couple of weeks, in which we've been previewing the Division II football season, then you would know that my expectations for Johnson C. Smith are very high. It's championship or bust as far as I'm concerned for Johnson C. Smith. That they have the ability to be on par with 2021 Bowie State, with last year's Virginia Union. I think they have the ability to be that good. I'm not going to go as far as say they could be 2012 Winston-Salem State. I'm not going to say that they could be a national championship team, but I will say they can absolutely be, at worst, they could be like 2022 Miles, who not Miles, my bad, Benedict, 2022 Benedict, who get to the playoffs, and hopefully they're able to win a playoff game. No disrespect to Benedict, but you got to the playoffs and you didn't win. But they were still a great team coached by Chennis Berry, and Maurice Flowers is a great coach in his own right. And that was a stacked team. That was more of a defensive-led team. But this is more of an offensive-led team. But I think they have the ability to have that ceiling to where they could be a first-round bye in the playoffs. I think they have the ability to be that good. And it starts with this receiving core, Brevin Caldwell and Armand Harris. This offense in general is loaded up. We talked about Kelvin Durham, who, even though he didn't have the season he may have wanted last season, he has still produced great numbers. And he's replacing a guy, Darius Ocean, who is great in his own right. And I think he more than has the ability to fill in those shoes that Darius Ocean left. So yeah, I would be very surprised if this team was not the CIAA champion and they were not in the Division II playoffs at the end of the year. It would be a huge disappointment for them not to be in the CIAA championship game, let alone not holding up the CIAA championship trophy. So, yeah, Brevin Caldwell and Armand Harris are my receivers. Skipping through the tight end, Devin Cunningham with Winston-Salem State. I can't say anything. I can't really go into detail because I don't really know much about Devin Cunningham. He there's not much at the Division II level. There's not you're not usually going to see the tight ends. They're usually going to be more of the blocking, used more for run and pass blocking at the Division II level. So there's not going to be many pass catching tight ends at the Division II level. So really just went with Devin Cunningham because 10 yards per reception is still pretty impressive no matter how many receptions you got. So yeah, Devin Cunningham is my tight end. Moving on to the offensive lineman, I'm going to scroll down here so we can see it. You got Bruno Onwazor at Virginia State. He's the main one that I know about because he was named to the East-West Shrine Bowl 1000 list. He was the only Division II HBCU player that was selected to the East-West Shrine Bowl 1000 list. He was one of 8 HBCU players in total, but the only Division II HBCU player that was selected. So big things are expected from Bruno Onwazor on a Virginia State team that will really need him. You know, this is Virginia State always has elite running back talent, and it's because of offensive linemen like Bruno why they are able to have the success that they've had. If you see a Virginia State running back that you didn't hear about before the start of the season ended up having a close to 1,000 yards this upcoming season, just know it's because he's running behind Bruno. You know, those big guys up front are a big reason why we have guys like Tyant Weish and Trayvon Tinsley and Curtis Allen, because we have offensive linemen like Bruno. So Bruno, he's expected to be a guy that NFL teams are going to be looking out for. I'll be watching more of him this season so I can have more of a educated analysis on him and his game. You know, but yeah, Bruno Onwazor is the star among the offensive line group. We also have Denzel Moore from Clark Atlanta, Elliott Howell of Tuskegee, Talik McCoy of Virginia State, teammate of Bruno, and Noah Stovall of Albany State. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball with the defensive linemen, and we have Israel my bad. I'm going to mess up your name, brother. I'm really about to mess up your name. Israel Nwokosha of Benedict. I believe Israel was named the SIAC preseason defensive player of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Israel, spoiler alert, there's a lot of Benedict defenders on this list. And it's because there's a lot expected of this Benedict. There's a lot of talent on this Benedict defense. Don't be surprised to see Benedict in the mix for the SIAC championship this year. It's really going to come down to I look at Benedict the same way that I look at Morgan State. Can this offense give them enough to put them in position to be there in November for the SIAC championship game? Because the defense has a lot of talent. The defense has the talent to get it done. It's going to be if the offense can give them the assistance that they need to put them over the top. And because I think this defense has what it takes to be the number one unit in the SIAC. I really do. There's a lot of talent that's featured on this preseason All-American team that shows that. And even on the SIAC preseason All-American team, it shows that. So expecting big things from Israel Nwokosha. You know, if there's one thing Benedict is going to do, they're going to produce a great defensive lineman. They had Lubert Danellis a couple of years ago. They had who transferred to South Carolina State. His name is escaping me right now, but yeah, Benedict knows how to produce a top tier defensive lineman. So, one second. Sorry about that. Yeah, Benedict knows how to produce a top tier defensive lineman, and Israel is the next line of great Benedict defensive linemen. Next, we got Jayshon Austin for Virginia State. Jayshon had a pretty good season last year. Had about, believe, 10 tackles for loss or something like that. His numbers aren't in front of me right now, but had a pretty nice defensive tackles for loss. Total had about 8 sacks last year. So he's going to be a big time player for that CIAA Defensive Player of the Year award. Not a lot of great talent. I was about to mess up that sentence. Let's rewind it back. A lot of the defensive talent that were on this all CIAA team last year, they are now gone. So Benari Black, who won the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year award, is now gone. Isaac Anderson, who was the CIAA Championship Defensive MVP, he's now gone. So the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year award is up for grabs, and him, Davion Watkins, who's also featured on this All-American team, they will be in the running. KJ McNeil will be in the running. There's a lot of guys that could potentially put their stamp on the CIAA this year and show that they are the top CIAA defenders. So look out for Jayshon Austin for the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year. And next we have Xavier Esquilin from Savannah State. One of the sleepier top defenders in the SIC last year. Had about 9 tackles for loss and about 3 sacks or so, I think, something like that. Again, the numbers aren't in front of me, so I don't have them exactly. But he quietly had one of the better seasons last year. I'm not sure if he was named to the All SIAC second team, but he's another guy that will benefit from a lot of the guys that from last season did not return for this upcoming year. So Xavier could potentially have a huge breakout season and could be in the running for SIAC Defensive Player of the Year. But I just think there's too much defensive talent on Benedict for anybody other than a Benedict defender to potentially win it. Speaking of Benedict defenders, you have at linebacker Demetrius Patterson. I'm just going to echo what I said earlier. There's no reason why Benedict should not have one of the top defensive units in Division II football and not be the top defensive unit in SIAC in the SIAC this year. It's just too much talent from top to bottom for them not to have. What about Dave? Did I not talk about Davion Watkins? Let's talk about him. Davion Watkins was one of the unheralded defenders on that Livingstone defensive unit last year. They were obviously not carried, but the team was highlighted by its secondary. So Davion Watkins didn't get much credit for his contributions, and I'm a part of that. I didn't give him his credit for his contributions because I was so in awe of their secondary. But Davion Watkins, he had a very special season. Had 15 tackles for loss. As a defensive lineman, that's very impressive. Tackles for loss is usually a linebacker stat or an edge rusher stat. So technically defensive lineman could be edge rusher, but anyway, 15 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. Those are very impressive numbers. For a defensive lineman. So I would love to see that sack total go up a little bit to really show that dominance that you can not only do run defense but pass defense, show that versatility to really stamp yourself as one of the top defenders. Because on Livingstone, unfortunately Livingstone won't get that press like Johnson C. Smith or Virginia Union or Virginia State going into the season. Of course, going into the season, they're not going to get that kind of press because we look at it as a 3-team race. But as I put before, if you haven't watched the podcast in the past couple of weeks, I look at Livingstone as being in that tier of sleeper teams with Shaw and with Winston-Salem State. And I think Davion Watkins can play a big part in Livingstone shocking a couple of teams this year and maybe even putting themselves in position to, if not play spoiler, maybe even put themselves in the CIAA championship game this year. So I think Davion Watkins can have a big year this year. Absolutely. So I hope that suffices. I don't know if I spoke on Davion Watkins. I might have forgotten. My bad if I did. But hey, hopefully I made up for it. But on to KJ McNeil. Getting back to the linebackers, KJ McNeil with Virginia State. KJ McNeil is another guy on that Virginia State defense who was a big part of why Virginia State got to the CIAA championship game this year. A lot of people looked at Virginia State as, benefiting from circumstance of, Johnson C. Smith collapsing in the final two games of the season when they only needed a win to get into the CIAA championship game. But you got to give Virginia State their credit. They went and beat the reigning CIAA champion Virginia Union in the final game of the season. That wasn't an easy task. Of course, they needed Johnson C. Smith to lose their final two games to give themselves a shot, but they still had to go out and win it. And that defense in that final game of the year against Virginia Union absolutely shut them down. They shut down Virginia Union in that final game of the season. And KJ McNeil was a big part of that. Virginia Union could not get much. It was one receiver who was able to have a big game for Virginia Union. Everybody else was kind of held to pedestrian numbers for the most part. So if they can do that over the course of all 10 games, it's not going to be any doubt that Virginia State could be in the CIAA championship game again this year and maybe even win it this year. So yeah, KJ McNeil, his numbers don't exactly jump off the board for you, but he's somebody that you actually have to watch. He's a lot of these guys are really guys that you have to watch to really get an appreciation for how good they are. Because the numbers they're not gonna look like your JJ Watts. They're not gonna look like a Aaron Donald type of numbers every single time. But you really gotta watch them and get an appreciation for what they can do individually and how they bring everything together as a team to get an appreciation for how good they really are. And that's who I look at KJ McNeil like. And we have another Savannah State defender, Gary Davis Jr. I'm not gonna lie to you and make up anything. I don't know much about Gary Davis Jr., but his numbers compared to the other linebackers who were named to the respective conferences preseason teams, they jumped off the board a little bit more for me than the other players did. So I will have Savannah State might have to be a team that I watched this year, because I was actually a little bit surprised at how many Savannah State players were named to the SIAC preseason team. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention to Savannah State to really get an appreciation for how good they were. Last year they did knock off Clark Atlanta. So maybe I didn't give that win enough the respect that it deserves. Duly noted. I will be tuned in to Savannah State to really see, how good they could potentially be this year. So I promise I'm gonna do my due diligence and really pay attention to Savannah State this year, because obviously last year there was a bunch of teams at the top, of the SIAC, like Miles and Clark Atlanta, Albany State, Fort Valley State, Tuskegee. It was a bundled mess at the top. So Savannah State being in the middle of the pack, they kind of got lost in the shuffle. That Clark Atlanta win should have really put them over the stratosphere, and it really should have got us talking more, but they didn't do much with that win to really give us anything to talk about. So hopefully they take full advantage of the opportunity that they have with the SIAC being more of an open race, and they give us something to talk about. Because I would love to give Savannah State, I would love to give any of the teams at the Division II HBCU level the credit that they deserve. I want to give a fully detailed breakdown of why Gary Davis Jr. is one of the better linebackers at the Division II level. But unfortunately, I don't have enough information. But hopefully he plays well enough to give me something to talk about. I'm not like I'm the standard bearer. I'm just little old me on a YouTube podcast. But yeah, I'll be watching Savannah State this year, and I definitely look forward to seeing what they could potentially do in what I believe to be a wide open SIAC. Moving down to the defensive backs, we have Mikhail King. He's been consistently been one of the top defensive backs for Tuskegee in the past couple of seasons. He's going to have a little bit more room to grow as a player. They've had a couple of defensive backs, leave through the transfer portal in the past couple of seasons for Tuskegee. So Mikhail King is going to have some room to be the number one defensive back, the number one corner for Tuskegee this year. And yeah, I fully expect him to continue to show that he is who he is, and get Tuskegee back to that championship level. Tuskegee and Winston-Salem State, it's weird not seeing them in the championship game. They've been in the picture. They've gotten themselves back into the picture in the past couple of years, but it's the fact that they haven't held up the championship in a while. It's kind of weird not seeing them hold up that trophy. It's kind of weird. I like it. I like it because their fan bases definitely think they're the best thing since sliced bread. But it's kind of weird not seeing Tuskegee or Winston-Salem State hold up that championship. That could potentially change this year if guys like Mikhail King play up to their standard. Mikhail King, somebody you want to keep your eyes on. Lawrence McConnell with Kentucky State, Carlos Dunovant. I apologize if I'm messing up your name, sir. Carlos Dunovant with Morehouse. Not much to say on them because, again, they're on teams that you don't really talk about much because they're not as good. But if you look up their numbers are actually very impressive. Not to say that their numbers are very impressive, with them. But it's just unfortunate that they're on teams that won't get talked about much because they're not that good. So hopefully Lawrence McConnell and Carlos can produce at a high level and maybe defy some expectations and get their team some wins on the board. Had to throw my alma mater in. No, I'm just playing. But but seriously, Jordan Williams with Bowie State. He's been one of our consistent producers for the past couple of years. Bowie. It's been a rough patch since Damon Wilson left. So they're trying to pick up the pieces, but the defense has always been our bread and butter. Keep saying R. I gotta be objective. Bowie's bread and butter has always been its defense. They've always produced top tier defensive talent, and Jordan Williams is no different. He's been a ball hawk for that Bowie State defensive unit. So I fully expect him to have a big year, and look out for Michael Robinson too at the running back spot. I know I'm going off topic, but Jordan Williams is definitely one of those guys that I expect to have a big year this year. Bowie has always produced top tier defensive talent, whether it be at the defensive line, linebacker, defensive backs. Go do your research. Bowie knows how to produce top tier defensive talent, and I see Jordan Williams as a top tier defensive talent for this Bulldogs unit. Moving forward with the kickers. We got Darius Satterfield of Elizabeth City State. Hopefully they don't need him as much, and the team is able to put the ball in the end zone. But yes sir. Shout out to you, big dog. But and then you got Brady Myers of Virginia Union. Then Jackson Williams at the kink return, and Terrence Holland of Elizabeth City State at punt return. So that is the HBCU Sports preseason Division II All-American team. Look, I'm just looking forward to the start of the season. I really am. And with the start of the season coming up, we have games that are set to be televised. And the SIAC shared, as I'm about to do, shared their ESPN schedule. These are all the games that will be on ESPN's family of networks in the SIAC. So for those of you who can't see, I'll read it for you. On the first Saturday of the season, you have not Albany State, Edward Waters and Savannah State. That'll be on ESPN Plus. That's on the 30th. Then on the next day, on the 31st, on Sunday, it'll be the Red Tails Classic between Winston-Salem State and Tuskegee. Matter of fact, let me just pull it up on my phone because I'm trying to read it through the computer screen and I can't see that myself. So bear with me for a second. I can read the next game though. It's Miles and Edward Waters that'll be on ESPN Plus. Oh, excuse me. The Red Tails Classics is on ESPNU on Sunday. So not ESPN Plus. That'll be on ESPNU on Sunday, August 31st. If you can go back and watch my previous podcast, I talked to each head coach from that game. So go back and go down the HBCU Sports catalog to see my interviews with Winston-Salem State and Tuskegee's head football coaches. Saturday, September 6th, they have Miles and Edward Waters on ESPN Plus. Then on Thursday, September 11th, on ESPNU, you have Fort Valley State and Clark Atlanta. So a national televised game. So hopefully we run those numbers up, run the viewerships up, so that ESPN can continue to put us on their main networks, main family of networks, as opposed to just ESPN Plus. Not to say that we're not grateful for ESPN Plus, but we want to get on them. We want to get on them nationally televised programs. We want to get on the main ESPN channel. We want to get on ESPNU, ESPN2. So next up on Saturday, September 13th, you have Virginia Union and Edward Waters on ESPN Plus. On September 18th, that'll be a Thursday, you have Tuskegee and Benedict. On Saturday, September 20th, you have Savannah State and Miles on ESPN Plus. On September 27th, you have a pair of games on ESPN Plus, Fort Valley State and Tuskegee, and to Kentucky State and Savannah State. On Saturday, October 4th, another pair of games. You have Kentucky State and Miles, and you have Tuskegee and Morehouse. On October 11th, you have Clark Atlanta and Albany State. On October 18th, we have a triple header of ESPN Plus games. You have Lane and Morehouse, you have Savannah State and Fort Valley State, and then you have Clark Atlanta and Miles, a rematch of the SIAC championship game. October 25th, you have a pair of games on ESPN Plus, Albany State and Benedict, and Allen versus Tuskegee. November 1st, you have a triple header on ESPN Plus. You have Savannah State and Albany State. You have Central State and Edward Waters, and then you have Miles and Fort Valley State. And then in the final week of the season, you have a pair of games on ESPN Plus. You have Albany State and Fort Valley State in the Fountain City Classic. And then you have Tuskegee versus Miles. And then, of course, you have the SIAC championship game, which is to be determined which network that would be on, which platform that will be on. So of all of these games, I think the one that intrigues me the most, I'd probably say is the Albany State and Benedict. I think that Benedict is a sleeper team to me in the SIAC, and I believe that's a matchup of the best defense in the SIAC and the best offense in the SIAC, with Albany State being the best offense and Benedict being the best defense. I think that's a matchup that could really go either way for me. On paper, a lot of people may predict Albany State to win that game, but I'm not so sure. Benedict has a lot of defensive talent, and I would not be surprised to see Benedict come away with the win in that one. But yeah, on paper, Albany State would be the favorite, but that's a pick 'em matchup to me. that's absolutely a pick 'em matchup to me. That's one that I could see go either way, and I think that can absolutely be an entertaining game. Another game that I really want to see on here is Clark Atlanta and Albany State. I still think Clark Atlanta has a chance to get back to the SIAC championship game and win it all. I know they've lost a lot in the all season, losing Armand Harris, not retaining David Wright, who was denied eligibility. You know, I still think that Clark Atlanta has what it takes to be one of the top teams in the SIAC this year. At worst they'll be middle of the pack, but I definitely think they could be a contender again this year. But Albany State will be a tough test for them. They will absolutely be a tough test for them, and yeah, I'll definitely think that'll be a very exciting game to watch. Ooh, excuse me. But yeah, Clark Atlanta and Albany State, I expect that to be a very entertaining game. Another game on here that I think that people should watch out for is Fort Valley State and Tuskegee. That is the former matchup from the Red Tails Classic before they branched out and included the CIAA in the game. Fort Valley State and Tuskegee, when they go up against each other, it's always fireworks. It's always going to be an exciting game. And I expect this year's iteration to be no different. Fort Valley State and Tuskegee are two of the most consistent programs in Division II HBCU football and Division II football in general. It's very rare to see Fort Valley State and Tuskegee or Tuskegee to finish with a losing record. So I don't expect that to be this year, and I expect this game to be just as exciting as it always has been in years past. So though that is the SIAC games that'll be on the ESPN family of networks. Let me see if the CIAA, well, the CIAA does the CIAA Sports Network. So, but they do usually do games on HBCU Go and on the Grio. So I don't know if they have released the games that will be on HBCU Go and the Grio. I'm pretty sure in the coming weeks they will release the games that'll be on the Grio or HBCU Go. But until they do, we'll cover it when they do. But that's gonna do it for this edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Thank you for all of you who tuned in. If you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to become a level 1, 2, or 3 member. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. Type in HBCU Sports and you will find us. And you can always follow us on Wait, I'm messing up my slogan, man. I say this all the time. Go to HBCUsports.com for all the latest news in sports and support our founding editor, Ken Rashad. He has just released a book. It is HBCU Sports 101. My bad, Ken. I forgot the slogan of the book. But he support his book, HBCU Sports 101. Go to kenrashad.com to get yourself a copy of the book. And you can get yourself a signed copy and pre-order a signed copy of the book. Get them before they go, because they going fast. They sell it like hotcakes. But until next time, see you guys.